Hey guys, tonight we dive into the places where people vanish. Quiet forests, forgotten towns, sealed rooms, and even bright sunny days. You're standing in a wide open field. Kids are laughing nearby. The smell of grilled hot dogs floats past on the breeze. And then someone turns around and their child is gone. Just gone. No scream, no scuffle, no trail of breadcrumbs. Just one heartbeat of normalcy and the next filled with a gaping absence. And if you're thinking, well, that could never happen to me, you probably won't survive this episode. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you all are drifting off from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive at the park just after noon. Families are picnicking under wide oaks, blankets laid out, sunblock barely holding back the July sun. You hear a kid shouting near the water, probably excited about catching a frog. You sip lukewarm lemonade from a plastic cup, slightly too sweet, and watch as a boy darts between trees full of energy. It's idyllic, until it isn't. Because 10 minutes later, his mother is screaming. She was fixing a snack, she says. Just turned around. He was right there. And now the boy's nowhere to be found. This is the 1981 disappearance of Adam, age 6. Not the Adam you're thinking of. Not the one whose story inspired America's Most Wanted. This one is stranger still, because this Adam didn't even make the news. No flyers, no TV reports. According to local police archives, a call came in. A family claimed their child vanished during a family reunion in Missouri. But when a deputy arrived, there was no family. Just the remnants of a picnic, a paper plate, a juice box, no car, no toys. Just a name given by a nearby witness. I think his name was Adam. The unsettling part. That same park had 2 other child disappearances in the previous decade, both involving kids between 5 and 7, both on overcast summer afternoons. Historians still argue whether these events are coincidences or the result of sloppy rural record-keeping. Local legends insist the land was cursed. Some say a settler once lost his own child to the woods and swore no other child would ever leave them again. You walk through the trail behind the picnic area. The sun is low now, light slanting gold through the branches. You pass a sign that's been mostly eaten by time, just a rusted metal plate with the faint outline of a warning. Stay on path. The path forks. One way winds back to the parking lot. The other, well, it seems to loop around the pond. But it doesn't. You take the loop. The pond's still and mirror-like. A dragonfly skips across it, then veers upward like it forgot gravity for a second. On the far shore, you see something. A shoe, children's size, brand new, but weirdly dry. No footprints. You crouch to inspect it and notice something odd. Inside the shoe, someone has written a name in marker. Not Adam. A different name. One that doesn't match any missing person in the area. But when you bring it back to the ranger station later, the guy behind the desk sighs and opens a drawer full of shoes. The same brand, similar size, all one-offs, none ever claimed. He tells you something in a half-joking tone. Kids vanish around here. One every few years. It's like the forest borrows them. No ransom, no bones, just poof. Then he chuckles like he didn't just say the most unsettling thing imaginable. You ask if they've installed cameras, GPS. Rangers? He shrugs. Budget cuts. Besides, he adds, the kids never go missing on camera. It's like the forest knows where we're looking. You laugh nervously. It's probably a prank, or urban legend, or maybe something less romantic like sinkholes. The earth swallowing things it has no business keeping. But that night, back in your motel room, you find yourself Googling Missouri missing children unsolved. There's a thread, a deep one. Posts from different usernames over the past 20 years, some written in shaky grammar, some obsessively detailed. One user mentioned seeing a boy in red pajamas near the park gate at sunset, crying but not responding when called. Another saw a woman chasing something barefoot across the highway. And the strangest post is a photo, grainy, analog, like a Polaroid. It shows the edge of the forest, and just at the border of the trees, a row of small shoes, like a trail, like an invitation. You scroll down. The comment is recent, from 2 days ago, but the photo was taken in 1997. There's a theory buried deep in a true crime subreddit that certain disappearance hotspots around the country align with Native American spiritual boundaries, ancient lines of energy or intention. Most experts dismiss this as pseudoscience. Historians still argue whether that land was ever sacred at all, or just remote and easy to vanish into. But you remember what the ranger said. The forest borrows them. And suddenly the missing flyers in the lobby, yellowing, curling at the edges, feel less like calls for help and more like confessions. You close your laptop. Outside, a dog barks twice. Then silence. Then a knock at your door. You didn't order anything. And you sure didn't tell anyone your room number. You freeze. The knock comes again. 3 quick taps, like a child playing a game they don't quite understand. You wait, breath held, as your ears strain in the heavy motel silence. Then, nothing. No footsteps, no second knock. Just that eerie, unnatural pause that feels like the air itself is waiting to see what you'll do next. You inch toward the door, the carpet too soft, your footsteps too loud in your own ears. Peering through the peephole, you see no one. Not a soul in the dim-lit hallway. But far down where the vending machine hums beside a flickering exit sign, there's something, a red shoe, kid size, standing upright as if it walked there by itself and simply stopped. And you realize this is how it begins. Not with a scream or a struggle, but with something simple. A small gap, a wrong shoe, a knocked door, a name whispered and lost. You leave the motel early the next morning, heading for the coast, hoping to leave this weirdness behind. But you don't. Not really. Because the next disappearance you'll stumble into happens at sea, where no one can hear you vanish. Welcome to the Flannan Isles, 1900. You're aboard a supply ship, the Hesperus, bouncing across rough Atlantic waters. The wind tastes like rust and salt, and the fog is already moving in before you're even halfway there. The lighthouse stands ahead, tall, silent, eerie. You're delivering food and checking on the 3 keepers who man the tower on a 3-week rotation. You reach the island, boots scraping rock, and immediately something's off. No greeting, no flags. The kitchen's locked, and the gate to the compound is swinging in the wind like it's been doing so for days. Inside the lighthouse, the clocks are stopped. The beds are made. A single chair is overturned at the table. There's food left out. 1 plate half-eaten, 1 untouched, and 1 never served. The 3 men, James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur, are gone, and they are never found. You check the cliff's edge. Waves boom against the rock like a heartbeat. Some say a storm must have taken them. A freak wave, perhaps. Others suggest 1 man fell, another ran to help, and the 3rd followed. But the logs tell a stranger story. 1 entry mentions a great storm lashing the island. Except that on the dates listed, no storm had been recorded in the region. Another entry is even more bizarre. The sea is angry. God is over all. That was the last thing ever written. Historians still argue whether the logs were forged, or if someone added them after the disappearance to dramatize it. The logbook vanished shortly after being filed, only surviving through partial transcripts. And then there's the fringe theory. The men were taken by the sea folk, mer beings, spirits of drowned sailors, legends told in the Hebrides since long before any lighthouse stood there. You explore the island as the fog thickens. There's no wildlife here, no birds, no seals, not even the insects seem keen. You find a jacket, oilskin, stiff with salt, caught on a nail outside the lighthouse. According to procedure, the keepers would never all leave without their gear. The Coast Guard runs a dozen investigations. Every answer leads to a new question. And the lighthouse? Remand eventually. But the replacements say they heard knocking in the night on the outside of the tower, halfway up, where no person could reach. You leave the island, grateful it's behind you. But disappearances don't stay on islands, they follow you. Fast forward. You're in 1948, soaring over the Atlantic in the Bermuda Triangle, a phrase you've probably heard mocked by skeptics and hyped by conspiracy lovers. But here's the kicker. Flight 19 actually happened. 5 TBM Avenger bombers on a routine training flight vanished. You're on the lead plane. Everything's normal at first, but then instruments start failing. Compasses spin. Radios pick up chatter that sounds like it's underwater. The commander, Lieutenant Taylor, sounds increasingly frantic. Everything looks strange, even the ocean, he says. We are entering white water, nothing seems right. The final transmission. They look like they are from outer space. Don't come after me. The rescue plane sent to find them, it vanished too. No wreckage ever found. One theory says the planes flew off course and crashed after running out of fuel. Another suggests magnetic anomalies. But more fringe believers whisper of time slips, bubbles where the laws of physics thin out. Historians still argue whether Flight 19 was a tragedy of navigation or an encounter with something else. Something watching, testing. You imagine what it felt like to descend slowly, surrounded by sky that no longer behaved, water that seemed to rise like a wall. One moment, you're real. The next, part of a file in a government cabinet labeled MIA. The term vanishing point gets thrown around casually, but when you're out at sea, that phrase takes on teeth. Back in the present, you check your phone. The screen glitches. Briefly, the wallpaper changes. It's a photo you don't recognize. Storm clouds over a lighthouse with a small figure standing alone at the top. You blink. The image is gone. Your usual lock screen is back.
You laugh it off.
You shouldn't. The laughter catches in your throat before it even leaves your mouth. Because for a split second, it felt personal. That image, storm clouds, lighthouse, a lone figure, wasn't just eerie. It was recognizable. Like something you've never seen, but already know. You're still thinking about it hours later, buckled into a cheap airline seat, tray table down, bag of pretzels unopened. Outside, clouds scroll past in silky sheets. There's something comforting about being 30,000 feet above the ground. But also, if we're being honest, something deeply unnatural. You're suspended in metal and hope. Then the turbulence hits. Nothing major at first, just a gentle rattle. But it ramps up, like the plane has started coughing. The captain's voice crackles over the PA. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a bit of chop. Should be brief. You glance down the aisle. Flight attendants freeze mid-cart. People clutch armrests they swore they wouldn't need. The date is March 25th, 2014. The plane you're on is not the one that vanishes, but you can feel it. The thin edge. Because 1 month earlier, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 disappeared over the South China Sea. A Boeing 777, 239 souls on board, simply vanishes from radar. No distress call, no final ping. It should have been a routine red-eye to Beijing. Instead, it becomes one of the most baffling disappearances in aviation history. You're not in that cockpit. But let's pretend you are. You follow standard route. Normal climb, normal chatter with air traffic control. Then, radio silence. The transponder shuts off. The plane veers sharply left, heading toward the Indian Ocean. One mainstream theory suggests a controlled flight into oblivion, possibly pilot suicide. Another, a catastrophic electrical failure. But fringe theories abound: hijacking, alien abduction, a wormhole. Historians still argue whether MH370 was a planned act or a failure of imagination, an event too strange to accept without adding mystery to explain the void. What haunts you, sitting there on your own flight, is the silence. Not the crash, not the splash, but the moment no one knew where they were anymore. In the weeks following the disappearance, international teams combed over 120,000 square kilometers of ocean. Some debris eventually washed ashore on remote islands. A wing flaperon, bits of cabin paneling, enough to confirm wreckage, but never to complete the picture. Meanwhile, the satellite data, one of the few clear signals left, suggests the plane kept flying for hours after it vanished. Not toward safety, not toward an airport, just away, into blue nothing. Imagine that. You're on board, hours into a flight you didn't sign up for, with no announcements, no GPS, no hope. You watch the sky go from black to purple to black again, and wonder if you're flying in circles or heading toward a place that doesn't appear on maps. A few years after the disappearance, a man posts a blog claiming he found MH370 using Google Earth, pixelated wings and all. The image goes viral. For 3 days, people believe the mystery has cracked open. Then experts confirm it's just cloud patterns. And yet, you still squint at the satellite photo. You still want to see a plane in it. Because the alternative is worse. That plane's this large, this full of people, can disappear and never be found. The irony? One of the search vessels sent to find MH370, an unmanned submarine, vanishes for 72 hours during a dive, completely cuts off comms. When it resurfaces, systems reboot and it returns to base. No explanation for what happened below 14,000 feet. That's the thing about disappearances, they ripple. Years later, a woman claims she heard a strange phone ring in the middle of the night, the same tone her brother used before he boarded MH370. But she doesn't answer in time. The number? Untraceable. You've probably heard the phrase ghost plane. It's not a horror film. It's aviation lingo for a real aircraft in flight after everyone on board is incapacitated. A silent metal ghost riding autopilot until fuel runs out. That's what they think happened to Helios Airways Flight 522 in 2005. Cabin depressurization, everyone unconscious. The plane flies itself into the side of a mountain in Greece. No one survives. But MH370 had a different signature, one that implies someone was still awake, steering, deciding. You look out your window. The clouds part for a second, and you swear you see something strange below. A long, dark shape beneath the surface of the ocean. But it's gone just as fast. You tell yourself it was a shadow, a reflection. Still, you turn on your in-flight tracker. It says you're right where you're supposed to be. Just like MH370 said, until it didn't. Hours later, you land safely, but the unease sticks to your clothes. You glance back at the plane before leaving the gate, as if expecting it to vanish behind you. The man in front of you says something as he grabs his luggage. The funny thing about flying, you never know if you've actually arrived, or just landed somewhere very similar. You smile politely, but your stomach drops. Because your boarding pass, tucked inside your bag, says Gate 17. And this flight departed from Gate 16, word count 1083. Awaiting continue. You don't panic, not right away. You tell yourself it's a misprint, a gate change you didn't notice, a harmless glitch in airport logistics. But still, your legs feel strange as you walk, like you're moving through a version of your life that's just a degree off. You reach the arrivals hall. People reunite with hugs and signs, but no one's waiting for you. And when you call your ride, the voice on the other end hesitates a second too long. You landed already, they say, but your flight's still listed as delayed. You don't sleep well that night. And your dreams. Nothing but fog. Endless fog rolling over trees, across streets, under doors. And somewhere inside it, voices, faint, calling names you almost recognize. Morning comes. You brush off the dread and keep moving, because what else can you do? You find yourself flipping through an old true crime book at a used bookstore. Tucked in its yellowed pages, almost like a placeholder, is a newspaper clipping. One with a photo of a village, snow-covered roofs, a church steeple, laundry frozen on the line, and the headline reads, "Canadian town vanishes overnight." You freeze. It's 1930. The village is called Angikuni Lake, located deep in the wilderness of what is now Nunavut, Canada. A trapper named Joe LaBelle arrives to trade pelts. He expects warmth, smoke, and chatter. But what he finds is silence. Not just quiet, unnatural silence. There are meals still on tables, firewood stacked, dogs tied up outside dead from starvation, but not a soul in sight. You follow him into the village in your mind. The snow crunches beneath your boots. A wind flutters laundry on the lines, but no one collects it. The cabins are open, but ransacked in no particular way, like people left in a hurry or were taken mid-action. Joe LaBelle runs to the nearest telegraph station and reports what he saw. Mounties are dispatched. Now here's where it gets tricky. Mainstream historians argue that the story was either misreported or outright fabricated. There's no official record of the Mounties confirming a mass disappearance in Angikuni. Some say it was a hoax that spiraled out of control. But even skeptics struggle to explain the consistency of early reports. An entire village of 30 or so people gone. No footprints in the snow leading away. No signs of violence. Just vanished. The fringe theories? Oh, they're creative. Some say aliens. Others say interdimensional doorways. Thin places in the fabric of space tucked away in the northern cold. There's even a theory that the villagers were reclaimed by the land, spirited away for violating some ancient unspoken law. But you want something more grounded. So you start looking at weather records, and what you find is curious. That night in 1930, a strange aurora was recorded above Angikuni, more vivid than any in living memory. Bright purple arcs instead of green, with reported flashes that lit up the snow like daylight. Historians still argue whether the aurora and the disappearance were connected at all, or whether the aurora even occurred. The book you're holding has a crease on page 217. You open it, and there it is, a grainy photo of the village. Same as the newspaper clipping, same exact angle. But something's different. There's a figure in the doorway of one of the huts. You squint. It's hard to tell. Could be a shadow. Could be a trick of old photo paper. Or it could be someone watching. You step outside the bookstore and realize you've wandered far from where you meant to be. The street signs don't look familiar. A man across the street is looking at you with mild confusion, as if he recognizes you but isn't sure why. You wave politely, then keep walking. The next town you visit isn't on your itinerary. You never booked a room. But the innkeeper says, "Ah, yes, we were expecting you." You don't correct him, you're too tired. That night you hear wind pushing against the window of your tiny room. And a voice, faint, female, maybe young, saying something over and over. It takes you 3 minutes to realize it's your name. You want to believe it's a dream, that your brain is playing games with patterns and shadows. But when you wake, there's a small handprint on the window. On the outside, you skip breakfast, hit the road. You think of the people of Angikuni who sat down to dinner one night and never got back up. And you wonder how many more towns have disappeared without making the news. How many more places are still listed on maps but don't actually exist anymore. You pull up Google Maps, search Angikuni Lake. It's there, but no roads lead to it. It dares you to try. You don't. Instead, you look up other mass vanishings. You find Roanoke. You find the Mary Celeste. You find a half-dozen entries about remote towns in Siberia, all abandoned overnight, with no records of relocation. And you remember something? The boy at the picnic, the red shoe, the grainy photo with the figure at the tree line. It's not just people who disappear. Sometimes entire places do. You keep driving, the road humming under your tires like a low, anxious lullaby. Trees crowd closer to the shoulder with every mile, shadows stretching long and thin like they're trying to reach inside your car. It's midday, but the light feels off, pale and metallic, like someone dimmed the world's contrast settings just a touch. Your GPS flickers once, then reboots. When it returns, the map has no names, just a blue dot floating in unnamed green. You shake your head. Just a glitch. Maybe bad reception. And maybe that's what Gerald Stober thought too. You park and hike into the Great Smoky Mountains. It's 1981 again. Different Gerald, different story. This one's a hiker, an experienced one. Knows the trails, wears the boots, brings extra water, carries a topographic map with highlighted notations like "Do not pass" and "Bear Cave" in the margins. He leaves for a solo trip into the Appalachian wild and never comes back. The park rangers launch one of the largest search operations in park history. Over 600 volunteers, helicopters, scent dogs, even aerial infrared cameras. They comb the area for 10 days. Find nothing. No shoe prints, no scraps, no bear attacks, just emptiness. You picture Gerald tying his boots that morning, confident and calm, zipping up his backpack, clicking his compass shut, then stepping off the trail just slightly for a better view of a stream or to relieve himself behind a log, and never stepping back. His camp is later discovered, undisturbed. Fire pit still warm. Map spread out on a rock like he planned to return. The only oddity? A small pile of pine cones stacked in a spiral not far from the tent, like a trail marker or a warning. Mainstream experts call it a tragic but not uncommon accident. People get lost. Exposure claims them. Wildlife scatters the remains. But 6 hikers have disappeared in that same square mile since the 1970s. None of them ever recovered. One left behind a camera. It had 6 blank photos. The 7th, a blurry figure in the distance. Not wildlife, not human, something in between. Historians still argue whether disappearances like these are merely statistical noise or evidence of something stranger. Areas where the rules of time and place fray. Locals have their own theories. They speak of staircases in the woods, stone or wooden, leading nowhere, standing alone among the trees. Everyone knows someone who's seen one, and everyone says the same thing: don't climb them. You laugh when you hear it. Sounds like a creepypasta. A ranger you meet, retired, crusty, sun-leathered, grins with too many teeth and says, "Oh, they're real! And the ones who ignore that rule, they're not." You leave the trail feeling like something followed you out, like you should have left something behind in exchange for your safe return. At the visitor center, you see a wall of missing person posters. Some are recent, others decades old. You notice a strange pattern. Some of the faces repeat. Same photo, different name. Almost like someone reused the picture by mistake. You ask about it. The ranger shrugs. Families sometimes use stock images if they don't have recent ones. Except one of the photos. You know that face. You saw it in a newspaper clipping at that bookstore. In the article about Angikuni Lake. You leave fast that night. You crash at a cheap roadside motel again. Seems to be your theme now. The room is dim, wallpaper peeling like sunburn. You try to fall asleep, but the wind outside sounds exactly like someone whispering through a closed door. You check your window twice. Lock the bathroom door just in case. You tell yourself it's nothing. The next morning, you're driving again before the sun fully rises. Fog hugs the road, thick and reluctant to let go. And in the haze, you pass something on the shoulder. A man, standing perfectly still, wearing old hiking gear. His eyes follow you as you pass. No hitchhiking thumb, no smile. Just that quiet, oppressive stillness, like he's not lost, but waiting. You keep driving, fast. Hours later, curiosity gets the better of you. You call the ranger station. Ask about Gerald Stover. The line goes quiet. "We don't have a record under that name," the voice says. "But you saw the posters, the campsite, the notes." You say that out loud. The ranger coughs, hesitant, then quieter. "We used to have a case like that, but the file disappeared, along with the evidence box and the search logs." "And you just lost it?" you ask. "No," he says. "It was removed." You hang up. Your phone buzzes. A message from an unknown number. You're not supposed to be this far in. You delete it, block it, but your hands shake the rest of the day. By evening, you've developed the habit of checking shadows for shapes that don't belong. You keep thinking about Gerald, about stepping off trail, about the pine cones, about how some places seem hungry and how they let you come in, but not always go back out. Section 6. The car ride feels different now. Not just like travel, like escape. You keep glancing at the rear view mirror, even when you know there's nothing back there. You drive with the radio off. You haven't listened to music in days. The silence has become protective. Your route brings you to Russia. Not physically, you're not that ambitious, but in the stacks of old articles you're now combing through online at 3 a.m., surrounded by empty coffee cups and a growing tower of missing post-it notes. And tonight, you land on one of the strangest, the Dyatlov Pass incident. You already know this one, don't you? Sort of. You've heard whispers, 9 hikers, the mountain of the dead, torn tents, missing eyes. But you've never really gone in. So tonight you do. It's February 1959. 9 Soviet students, experienced hikers, embark on a ski trek through the Ural Mountains. They plan to reach Mount Otorten, a name which, in the language of the indigenous Mansi people, roughly translates to "don't go there." Of course they do anyway. You lace up your snow boots, bundle in heavy gear and trek with them. You hear their laughter. The camera they pass around captures blurry smiles, snowball fights, tired peace. They pitch a tent on the slope of Colaziaco, Mansi for Mountain of the Dead. The temperature drops below 25 degrees Celsius. Then in the middle of the night, something happens. The tent is slashed open from the inside. The hikers flee barefoot and half-dressed into the dark. No lanterns, no supplies, just panic. Weeks later, a search party finds the camp. The scene is wrong. The tent still standing, partly buried in snow. 8 bodies are found, some with broken ribs, one with a crushed skull, another missing her eyes and tongue. But no signs of struggle, no external wounds, like something crushed them from the inside. Historians still argue whether it was an avalanche, military testing, or something more bizarre. Some point to infrasound, low-frequency noise that induces panic and hallucination. Others whisper about the Mansi's legends of forest spirits and glowing orbs in the sky. And here's where it gets weirder. Investigators at the time reported that several bodies had strangely high radiation levels on their clothing. No official explanation, just a note in the files. Later, those files vanish from the archives. The Soviet government quietly shelves the case, labels it a compelling natural force. You try not to laugh. Years later, in 2019, Russia reopens the case and announces the official conclusion: avalanche. But that answer fits like a borrowed coat, sort of right, but mostly stiff and uncomfortable. Because one body was found over 100 feet from the tent, climbing a tree, or maybe trying to escape up it. A local rescuer at the time said the corpses looked like they had died from fright. You sit in the dark with that image for a while. Then you find a lesser-known detail. A 10th person had originally planned to join the hike. A young man named Alexander Zolotarev. He backed out at the last moment, citing a bad feeling. Lived until 1983. Died in a house fire that started with no electrical source. Only a burned notebook survived, partially legible. Inside, a scribbled note. They were not meant to be seen. And then there's this, a second hiker team, 50 kilometers north. Reports seeing floating lights over the mountains on the same night the Dyatlov group disappeared. UFOs, plasma phenomena, weapon tests. Fringe theories say all of the above. You imagine waking up in that tent, the silence so total it screams, your skin prickling with static, no sound, no reason, just the unshakable feeling that you must run, that staying in the tent means death, even if you don't know why. You dig deeper. A journalist in the 70s claims to have found a page from one of the students' journals. In it, a final entry. Now we know snowmen exist. It sounds laughable, until you realize the Mansi folklore includes tall, faceless beings that live in the peaks and punish trespassers. You close your laptop. You've had enough for one night, but as you brush your teeth in the mirror, you freeze. Because for just a second, there's a second reflection behind you. Barefoot, eyes wide, mouth open like it's mid-scream. You turn fast. No one's there. Of course not. You look back at the mirror. Nothing. But the toothpaste in the sink is still swirling. You sleep with the light on that night. The next morning, you check your journal. You've been keeping notes ever since the picnic story. And under last night's entry, there's something new. Written in your own handwriting. But you don't remember doing it. Just 4 words. Stay off the mountain. The words sit there on the page like a warning from a version of yourself that got out ahead. Like some earlier you ran just far enough to scribble a note and then didn't come back. You stare at it for a full 5 minutes. Stay off the mountain. No punctuation. Slanted. Familiar loops in the letters, but shakier. Like you'd written it in the dark, or with your eyes closed. You decide to ignore it. Because what else are you supposed to do? Burn the journal? Set up motion cameras while you sleep? Move to a high-rise in a city with no mountains, forests, or poorly lit gas stations? You press on, which brings you to 1971, Peru and Julian Kupska. This one's not exactly a disappearance, except it sort of is. Because Julian vanished from a plane, mid-air. It's Christmas Eve. Lancer Flight 508 is flying over the Amazon basin. Julianne, 17 years old, is sitting next to her mother, fidgeting with a Christmas present on her lap. There's turbulence, then lightning, a flash. Then she's falling at 10,000 feet, still strapped to her seat. The jungle rises to meet her like a giant green blanket with a mean streak. And here's the thing, she survives. Broken collarbone, bruises, a torn ligament in her knee, but she's alive. Only her, out of 92 people on board. She wanders the rainforest for days, following a stream, drinking muddy water, and keeping herself from passing out by repeating biology lessons from her scientist parents. It's a miracle story. But then the strange part, it takes 9 days for her to find help. And when she's finally rescued, they don't believe her. She leads them back to the crash site, shows them the wreckage and the bodies. Here's the haunting bit. She hears search planes above her for days. They're circling, so close she can see them. But none of them spot her. Not one. It's like something kept her hidden, just barely tucked out of view. And that's why this belongs in our collection. Because sometimes survival stories brush up right against disappearance stories. You walk the edge. Sometimes you fall. And sometimes the jungle catches you. Historians still argue whether Julianne's survival was pure physics, a fluke of air pressure and thick foliage, or something less explainable. A few fringe theorists suggest her fall was guided, that the trees didn't break her fall. They caught her. Julianne herself said she felt held, not by a force exactly, but by something, like she was meant to make it. And the plane, when you look at the reports, you notice something odd. Sections of wreckage were found miles apart, as if the plane had disassembled mid-air, which it shouldn't have, even with lightning. Julianne now works as a mammologist, spends her days in the jungle, says she trusts it more than cities. But when asked if she'll ever fly again, she always hesitates. You flip your journal closed, write nothing this time. You go for a walk, clear your head. But the walk takes you through a neighborhood you don't recognize. One block over, then another, and now, where are you? The houses are normal enough. Lawn gnomes, faded trampolines, a broken sprinkler sputtering water onto the sidewalk. But there are no people, no barking dogs, no cars, just a low hum in the air, and a quiet so complete it buzzes. You check your phone. No signal. Of course. You turn a corner and spot something strange. An old van parked under a dying oak. On the door, a painted logo. Teltec Recovery Services. You don't know what that means. You try to peek inside. It's empty, but the windshield has a map taped to it. A map of your own neighborhood, with one house circled in red. Your house. You don't walk home, you run. When you finally burst in, nothing's moved. No doors unlocked, no signs of entry. Just your plants, your couch, your books. And on the table, a business card. It reads, We collect the missing. Teltech recovery. Field agent #0001 status under review. You flip it over. Blank. Later that night, you search the company name online. Nothing, not a trace, no website, no reviews, no articles. You try Google Street View. You type in your address. The front of your house loads, then glitches, replaces your house with a forest clearing, just trees, and a single shoe. Red! You close the laptop and whisper, "Okay, I get it." You don't, though. Not yet. You sleep with your phone flashlight on. It dies by 3 a.m. When you wake, the world feels slightly to the left, like the drawer that usually sticks opens too easily. The fridge hums in a different pitch. The photo of you and your cousin at Niagara Falls is suddenly of you and someone else. Same pose, same backdrop, not your cousin. You leave the house, drive without a destination. The road feels safer than the walls. At a red light, you glance at the car next to you. The driver's staring, not at you, through you. His lips move, but you can't hear. And when the light turns green, he doesn't move. You don't wait. You hit the highway, let the scenery blur past. That's when your mind drifts to another mystery. One that doesn't involve mountains or forests, but a stage, a spotlight, and a woman who knew how to vanish until she never came back. The amazing Amy. You read about her in a fringe magazine years ago. One of those rabbit holes you laugh at and then keep flipping through because your popcorn's already made. She was a magician in the 1930s. Real name, Amy Blanchard. Performed in cabarets, county fairs, smoky lounges filled with gin and ghosts. She was famous for one trick, the vanishing booth. No trapdoors, no mirrors, just Amy, a small red curtain and a puff of golden powder. And one night in Cincinnati, she doesn't reappear. The audience claps at first, thinking it's part of the show. But the curtain stays empty. Minutes pass, then panic. Someone pulls the curtain aside. Nothing there. Gone. Stage searched. Theater swept. The magician's assistants questioned. No foul play found. Amy never seen again. Historians still argue whether the disappearance was a stunt gone wrong, a secret getaway, or the world's first real-life teleportation. One document, later sealed by local police, mentions that the stage beneath the booth was warm to the touch. Not just warm, hot, like something electrical or volcanic. And the red powder she used, analyzed afterward, a compound no lab could identify. Closest match, crystallized bismuth. You'd shrug it off, except she's not the only one. In 1978, a street performer in Paris vanishes mid-levitation act. In 2004, a magician in Bangkok attempts a teleportation trick in a water tank. The tank's drained. No trapdoor, no body. Magic, you say? Misdirection? Maybe. But get this. Amy's family kept a journal, passed down through 4 generations. A worn little leather thing with a single page that stands out. Dated 2 weeks before her final show. "I am no longer sure this trick belongs to me," it reads. "I feel it's begun, using me instead." You stop at a gas station. Ask for directions. Even though you have GPS, you just want to hear a voice that's definitely human. The clerk smiles with all her teeth, but doesn't blink once. "Wherever you're going," she says, "make sure it wants you there." You nod, leave, never ask for directions again. You think of Amy's final performance, the applause, the silence, the empty booth. You imagine being in that crowd, waiting for her to reappear, and slowly realizing she isn't going to. Now imagine this. What if she did reappear? But not here. What if she blinked into some parallel thread, some backstage version of our world with no doors? The booth's original curtain now hangs in a private collection in Las Vegas. Occasionally, people who touch it complain of dizziness. Some hear music that isn't playing. One teenager, on a dare, touched the cloth, then started speaking fluent French. Had never studied a word. A week later, he forgot who his parents were. Now lives under a different name, says he dreams of red curtains and golden smoke. You're not saying you believe it, but you do feel uneasy the next time you see a stage magician perform. He asks for volunteers. You do not raise your hand. Later, flipping channels in a late-night hotel room, you land on a vintage documentary rerun. Black and white. Interview footage. It's a woman with sharp cheekbones, half lit. The thing about disappearing, she says, is it's only magic if you come back. Otherwise, it's just a story people tell. The channel cuts out. You call the front desk. They say their TVs don't get that station. You write the quote down anyway. It's good. Feels true. The thing about disappearing? You turn the quote over in your head for hours, then realize it didn't say who was telling the story. The quote clings to your mind like fog on a windshield. You try to wipe it away, but it keeps forming again, bead by bead. It's only magic if you come back. That's the thing, isn't it? So many people in these stories don't. But one might have. And that's where you find yourself next. Crawling through newspaper archives, clunky old PDFs scanned at an angle until a headline stops your scrolling finger cold. Boy returns from the nowhere place. No joke. That's the actual title printed in the Gadsden Times, 1951. You sit back in your chair, spine doing that involuntary shiver thing. Because this one doesn't start with a disappearance. It starts with a reappearance. Here's how it goes. A boy 8 years old goes missing in Alabama, walks into the woods while playing hide and seek with his cousins. They search for hours, then days. Search teams, helicopters, river divers, nothing. He's presumed dead. But 7 months later, he walks into the front yard like nothing happened. Same clothes, same haircut, even the same scab on his chin. Only thing that's changed, his eyes. His mother says at first that they're a little too quiet. He says he's been in the other house. Just that. Over and over. The other house! Says it was made of mirrors, but none of them showed him. Says people were there, but they weren't people. Mainstream historians, and you can practically hear them rolling their eyes, claim the kid was either abducted and returned or ran off and faked amnesia. But the medical examiner noted something odd. No signs of exposure, no sunburn, no bug bites, no malnutrition. Like he'd spent 7 months in a climate-controlled room, or nowhere at all. He wouldn't or couldn't say much more, just one eerie phrase. They said I could go back whenever I wanted. Historians still argue whether the boy's return was genuine or an elaborate hoax. But here's what makes you pause. He disappeared again when he was 25. College dropout, working a dead-end retail job. Vanished during a solo camping trip in Tennessee. Tent left standing, car keys on the dash. Shoes side by side as if he'd stepped out of them. No body found, no footprints. Just one thing left behind, a small shard of mirrored glass, shaped like a house. It gets weirder. The tent was found zipped from the outside. And that's when you start noticing the pattern. A pattern that stretches beyond forests and flights and fog. These stories, they're rhyming. Like they belong to the same song, echoing across decades. You find other returnees, people who came back, but weren't quite them anymore. A woman in Poland found wandering a canal road in 1972, swearing she lived underwater for 12 years. a coal miner in West Virginia who emerged from a sealed shaft 10 years after the accident that supposedly killed him, with no beard, no age progression, and a totally different accent. One even claimed that time was just a suggestion, not a rule. Another said, "The others didn't like me leaving." You don't know who the others are, but you hope they don't like visiting either. And then there's this. A 1993 police report from Oregon describes a man in his 40s wearing an outdated high school Letterman jacket who appears out of nowhere in a Walmart parking lot. He claims to be Charlie Darden, a student who disappeared in 1966. The handwriting on his ID matches records. His fingerprints match, but his body? Completely unchanged. No aging, no explanation. He panics when taken to a hospital, screams, "Don't make me go back!" Before tests are completed, he bolts. Never seen again. But the kicker? That Walmart was built on the same site where he'd vanished almost 30 years earlier. No one knew that at the time. You close your laptop and take a long, slow breath. Because now you're not just dealing with disappearances, you're dealing with returns. And they're somehow worse. It's easy to fear the vanishing, the nothing, but the coming back, slightly wrong. That's where your skin starts crawling. You walk to your kitchen, flip on a light, and all your cabinet doors are open. All of them. You didn't leave them like that, you swear, but nothing's missing. Not a fork, not a cup. Everything's where it should be, just exposed. You close each one by one, like sealing a series of quiet deals with a house you're suddenly not sure you live in alone. That night, you don't sleep at all. You just listen. And at 3:09 a.m., you hear it. A knock. Not at the front door, not at the back. From the hallway closet. You do not open it, not because you're scared, but because you're starting to believe them. Whoever or whatever they are. The knocking stops after exactly 3 raps. Like a polite visitor. Like something with manners. You sit frozen, breath held like a balloon about to pop. You think about getting up, about opening the closet, just to prove it's nothing. But you already know, if you open it, something will be missing. And it won't be a coat. So instead, you whisper into the silence, "Not tonight." And whoever, or whatever it is, respects that. For now. Come morning, you drive again, aimlessly. You tell yourself it's research, momentum, forward motion. But it feels more like migration. Like some animals just know when to keep moving. You end up in Arizona. It's hot, dry, safe feeling in that crispy lizard-on-a-rock way. You think the desert will protect you, that there's nowhere to hide here. No woods, no fog. That's when you learn about the lost Dutchman's mine. You've heard pieces, probably. Gold, ghosts, greed. But you never knew how many people have actually vanished chasing it. It starts with a man named Jacob Waltz, the Dutchman, though he was actually German, who supposedly discovered a massive gold deposit in the Superstition Mountains in the late 1800s. He keeps it secret, dies in 1891, whispering a rough map to a nurse on his deathbed. What happens next? People lose their minds. Treasure hunters descend. Everyone wants the gold, but what they find instead is silence, confusion, and disappearances. Dozens of them. Over decades. Hikers who enter the mountains with food, water, GPS, never seen again. Rangers still find campsites, half-cooked meals, notebooks, gear, but no people. Historians still argue whether it's the terrain, caves, sudden drops, disorienting rock formations, or something older, something spiritual. The Apache consider the land sacred. Some tribes call the mountains cursed. Others say there's something buried beneath them that was never meant to be unearthed. In 1931, Adolf Ruth went looking for the mine. He was a seasoned outdoorsman. disappeared without a trace. Months later, his skull was found. 2 bullet holes, no gun. His journal was intact, and in it he wrote, Veni, Vidi, Vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. Weird flex, right? But here's the kicker. The page also contains GPS coordinates. Modern researchers map them. Guess where they lead? To a flat stretch of desert where your compass spins in circles. No metal, no interference, just magnetic confusion. Fringe theorists believe the mine isn't a mine at all. They say it's a hole, a point of thinness. Not in the rock, but in the world. A sinkhole in the fabric of the real. And here's the part that makes your skin tighten. Satellite imaging has never been able to fully map the superstition range. Something about the angles, the glare. The data always comes back corrupted, like the land refuses to be recorded. You read about a modern hiker who left behind a trail cam, just for safety. When he didn't return, searchers found the camera. 1 photo, just one. It's him, back turned, walking uphill, but the trees around him, not desert flora, pine trees, snow. Arizona doesn't do pine and snow in June. You read about another case. A woman disappears while hiking solo. Her phone's recovered months later, in perfect condition, 200 miles away. All her photos are gone, except one, a single black square. Metadata confirms it was taken at noon. You think of the boy from Alabama, the mirrored house, the knock on your closet, and now this mountain that won't show itself on camera. The air in your car feels heavier. The desert doesn't feel safe anymore. That night you sleep with your curtains drawn tight, but something keeps brushing the fabric from the outside, like fingers, testing for gaps. You put a chair in front of the door. Not that it would help. The next day you leave Arizona, but you carry a rock in your pocket now, just a small one, from the foot of the trail. Something to weigh you down, something to tether you. You tell yourself it's just a souvenir, but deep down, you know, it's an anchor. Because something wants you to keep moving. Something likes it when you wander too far from yourself. You cross state lines with your phone on airplane mode and a half-drunk bottle of gas station iced coffee rattling in the cup holder. The longer this trip goes on, the more you avoid reflective surfaces. You've started noticing that sometimes, just sometimes, your reflection doesn't quite move with you. Today's detour? Vermont. Quaint, leafy, cinnamon-scented towns with covered bridges and farmers' markets full of people who smile too much and blink too little. You stop at a place that sells maple syrup in glass skulls and buy some out of sheer nervous politeness. The woman at the counter hands you your change and says, "You're not here for the road, are you?" You freeze. What road? She doesn't answer, just goes back to labeling jars. But you already know. You've been circling it for weeks, consciously or not. And tonight you dig into it. Route 44, the Bennington Triangle. Sounds silly, like a budget off-brand Bermuda Triangle. But it's not. This one's real. Not over water, but land. Dense, wooded, silent land. And between 1945 and 1950, 5 people disappeared there, in daylight, all within a few miles of each other. There's Midi Rivers, an experienced hunter who vanishes while walking ahead of a group. The hikers round a bend. He's gone. Then Paula Weldon, a college student on a solo hike. Passers-by remember her red coat. She never returns. Search parties find nothing. Not even a footprint. Then comes James Tetford, who literally vanishes from a moving bus. The driver swears he was there at the last stop. Then he wasn't. His suitcase? Still on the seat. Historians still argue whether the disappearances are connected or just statistical coincidence. Locals have other thoughts. They talk about the silent spots in the woods. Areas where birds stop singing, compasses go haywire, and sound doesn't travel. Hunters say you can shout at the top of your lungs and no one 10 feet away will hear. Some say there's a door out there, not metaphorical. An actual doorway made of black stone nestled in the trees, open sometimes, closed others. One legend tells of a hiker who returned, barefoot and babbling, 6 months after vanishing. Said he walked into a room that was too wide for its own ceiling, full of shapes with no eyes. Claimed they studied him, took notes, and then let him slip back out. He was dead within a week. Internal bleeding, no injuries, nothing visible. You find a sketch online, supposedly drawn by an amateur paranormal researcher who disappeared in 2002. The drawing shows a trail winding through trees, but when you look closer, the trail is made of words, tiny script running like a river. This is not a path, this is not a path, this is not a path. You close your laptop, check the lock on your hotel door twice. Then curiosity, stupid, eternal curiosity, drives you to open your phone's compass app. The arrow spins, pauses, then points due west. You're on the 2nd floor. You put the phone down. You try to sleep. You really do. But your dreams drop you straight into forest. You know the kind, mossy, pine-heavy, weirdly quiet. You're hiking, following a faint trail of red thread tied to branches. You keep thinking you'll reach something, but you never do. You just walk, and the thread gets thinner and thinner until it snaps, and that's when you hear breathing. Not yours, not human. You wake up drenched. The clock says 3:33 a.m. Outside it's raining, except it's not hitting the window, it's hitting the walls. Like the weather's confused. You sit up and whisper into the dark. Who's there? And in that very second, the power cuts. Not just lights, your phone too, laptop, everything. Pitch black. You sit silent, waiting for the hum of the fridge or the buzz of the bulb to come back. They don't, but something else does. A voice. Right behind you, close, calm.
I remember you.
You don't turn around. You don't breathe. You just grip the edges of the bed and hold on to this world with everything you've got. The lights snap back on. You're alone, of course. But when you look at the mirror, there's steam on the glass. Words drawn in it, as if with a fingertip. See you on the road. You leave Vermont before the sun comes up. No breakfast, no coffee, not even a checkout. You just grab your keys, toss your bag in the back seat, and drive like something's gaining on you. Because maybe it is. The phrase on the mirror plays on loop in your mind. See you on the road. Not if, not maybe, just see you, like a promise, like a receipt. So naturally, your next case is about a man who vanishes from a road. Not just any man, not just any road. Brandon Swanson, Minnesota. It's the kind of case that creeps up on you. No supernatural fog, no forest portal, no ancient legends. Just headlights, a wrong turn, and a phone call that ends too soon. Brandon, 19 years old, is driving home late after a college party. He crashes his car into a ditch on a gravel road. It's dark, rural, but he's okay. Car's stuck, but he's unhurt. So what does he do? He calls his parents. He sounds calm. Tells them where he thinks he is, near Lind. Says he'll walk to the nearby town of Marshall and meet them in a parking lot. They stay on the phone with him for 47 minutes. He gives them updates. He can see lights in the distance. He's walking along a gravel road. He says, "Oh, and then the line goes dead. Never found again. Historians, and yes, even they get pulled into modern cases, still argue whether he fell, was abducted, or intentionally vanished. The area was searched for weeks. Drones, dogs, nothing, not even his phone. And here's the weird bit. His car wasn't anywhere near where he said he was. It was found 25 miles away off a completely different road. Like reality and GPS just desynced. Brandon told his parents he could see lights, said he was heading toward them. But when authorities retraced the path, there were no lights to be seen. Nothing but farmland and flatness. No buildings, no signs, just a horizon that doesn't blink. Fringe theorists have latched on to this one. They say Brandon might have stepped onto something old, something pre-electric, pre-map. They call it a thin route, a stretch of land where the world wears thin like a well-walked carpet. Some say it shifts. One researcher claims to have found an unmarked intersection near where the call dropped, on no map, no county record. She went back to photograph it. Every image came out blank. Every single one, just white. When asked about it later, she said, "I don't remember taking the pictures. I don't even remember leaving." She quit her job 3 weeks later, lives off-grid now, somewhere in Oregon. Brandon's case is still open, still unsolved. His parents leave their porch light on every night just in case. You imagine that, waiting years, decades with the light always on, like a signal flare into the abyss. You wonder how many people in the world are still waiting for someone who's already slipped away. That night you camp out in your car, somewhere flat, somewhere plain, middle of nowhere, Midwest style. A gas station and an abandoned water tower in either direction. No music, just you and your thoughts. And then headlights. Not approaching, just appearing. Far off, right where there shouldn't be any. You watch them in the rearview mirror. They don't move, just two pale eyes in the dark. You turn the key. Dead. Your engine doesn't even click. You try again. Nothing. You look up. The lights are gone. Then you hear gravel crunching behind you. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. You do not turn around, not right away. Instead you whisper, "I'm not ready." And like that, whatever it is, it pauses. Then fades. The air feels thinner. Your ears pop. You swear you hear something laugh far away and too deep for lungs. Then your engine roars to life. You don't ask how, you just drive. And for the rest of the night, the stars feel too close, like they're hanging low, pressing down on the world. By dawn, you've put 400 miles between you and wherever that was. But your rearview mirror, it's cracked now. A fine spiderweb right down the middle. And on the inside, in the faintest trace of condensation, 3 letters have formed. BSV. You wipe it away. Try to pretend it's coincidence. The initials of someone long gone. But deep down, you know, someone or something was listening. You stop talking to strangers after that. You stop trusting mirrors. You unplug the TV in every motel room. You start sleeping in 10-minute bursts. Phone flashlight clenched in one hand like it can ward off whatever listens in the dark. And then for reasons you can't quite explain, you start researching the green children of Woolpit. It feels like the wrong move at first, like folklore, not mystery. A bedtime story meant for bored medieval farmers. But as you dig, something tugs at the base of your spine. That shiver again. That gut-deep hum of something old. So here's the story. England, 12th century. A small village called Woolpit. One afternoon, 2 children appear near a wolf pit. Thin, wide-eyed and green. Not sickly, not metaphorically, literally green-skinned. Like plants, like copper gone strange. A boy and a girl. They speak no known language. Wear clothes made of unfamiliar cloth. Won't eat anything until they're offered raw beans. Then they gorge themselves like they haven't seen food in days. The boy dies within weeks. The girl survives. Gradually loses her green tint, learns English, grows up. But when asked where she came from, she says they came from a place called St. Martin's Land, where everything is twilight and the sun never shines. She says everyone there is green. She says they were herding animals when they heard a sound, like bells. And then they were here. Just like that. Historians still argue whether the children were orphans, hallucinating, malnourished. Some say they were Flemish refugees, war-displaced, confused, frightened. But the girl, Agnes, as she was later known, described her home in too much detail, spoke of a pale river, a glowing sky, tunnels of metal that hummed like bees. She said they didn't walk here. They slipped. You chew on that word for a while. Slipped. Like you'd slip through a crack in a floorboard, or between thoughts, or between worlds. Modern researchers have tried to pin it down. They examine magnetic fields, soil composition, even the acoustics of the nearby woods. But nothing explains the children, their color, their speech, their hunger, their fear, or their origin. Fringe theorists say they're time travelers, or cross-dimensional refugees, or the descendants of a forgotten experiment. One hypothesis, that they came from underground, not metaphorically, from an actual ecosystem buried beneath us. A twilight world, untouched by sun or war, humming in frequencies just outside our range. You come across a Fringe podcast that interviews an elderly man from Suffolk. He claims his grandfather, before dying in the 1950s, told him he saw another green child in his youth. Just one. Alone. Found curled in a hollow tree stump during a thunderstorm. The boy vanished before anyone could help him. His skin? Moss-colored. And in the mud beside the stump? Tiny handprints. Three-fingered. You try to shrug it off. Coincidence. Folklore. But you feel it. That rhyming pattern again. That echo through time. A strange place. A sound. A slip. You think of Brandon Swanson. The girl in the red coat. The boy from the mirrored house. You think of doors that don't open both ways. Of footsteps on gravel roads that stop mid-stride. And somewhere deep in your mind, something begins to fit. Not a theory, not a solution. More like a shape. A contour of understanding. Like you're mapping the outline of something enormous in the dark. That night you wake up in your car. No memory of falling asleep. Engine off. Lights out. No other cars for miles. But the passenger door is ajar. And there, sitting in the seat, is a single object. A bean. Plump, wet, raw. You leave it there. Drive all night. You don't stop until you hit a coastline. You walk to the water and stand there, toes in the surf, letting the chill bite your skin just to remind yourself what this world feels like. Real cold, salty, normal. But when you turn around, there's a set of small footprints behind you, green tinted. You walk backward carefully, slowly, and pretend you don't hear the faint jingle of bells in the distance. You drive less now. You keep to well-lit areas, grocery stores, diners with sticky menus and fluorescent lighting, libraries that smell like dust and certainty, places where the world feels anchored, where doors only go one way and mirrors behave themselves. But even then it follows you. You start seeing missing person flyers taped to lampposts you just passed, names you recognize, faces from old case files, some from centuries ago. One has your middle name. That's when you dig into one final story. The most modern, the most ordinary, the one that makes all the others feel closer. The disappearance of Lars Mittank, Bulgaria. Lars is 28, German, on vacation with friends near the Black Sea. He gets into a small altercation. Nothing wild. Maybe a scuffle over football teams. Ends up with a ruptured eardrum. Doctor says no flying. He stays behind while his friends return home. He checks into a cheap hotel near the airport. That night he calls his mother in a panic. Says people are following him. That he's hiding. That he doesn't feel safe. says not to cancel his bank card. The next day, he visits the airport. Surveillance cameras catch him entering with a small bag. Then he runs, not walks fast, not hurries. Bolts out the doors, through the terminal, sprints across the tarmac, over fences, into the woods. Disappears. Gone. No sign of him since. Historians still argue whether he had a psychotic break, a panic attack, or if something more sinister happened. But here's the thing. There's no record of anyone following him. No threats. No confirmed pursuit. Just his fear. And the footage. You watch that video over and over, and every time it looks less like he's running from something and more like he's running to escape something he can see. But we can't. One fringe podcast claims to have enhanced the footage. Claims there's a blur, something moving, frame to frame, just behind the glass. Something too tall, something slow. You don't know if you believe that, but you do believe Lars saw something, and that his fear was real, because you felt it. You've heard it. A footstep behind you when no one's there. A name whispered from a phone that isn't ringing. A reflection that grins just a fraction too long. You think of the missing, the reappeared, the nearly returned. You think of people who were almost saved, who made it halfway back and changed just enough to never fit again. And it hits you. Maybe this isn't about being taken. Maybe this is about drifting. Like sand through fingers, like thought during fever, like dreams forgotten upon waking. You open your notebook, you draw a circle, then you draw another one slightly off center, then a third. None of them overlap. You write, what if we're not lost, just in the wrong version? The door to your motel creaks. Not opens, just creaks, like someone pressed against it, testing the weight. You freeze. It doesn't happen again. But when you go to check, there's a note slipped underneath. On hotel stationery, scrawled in unfamiliar handwriting. You were never alone. You sit with that. You sit with that. You think of Brandon's footsteps ending mid-path. Amy's golden powder. The boy in the mirrored house. The closet knocking just 3 times. Then you notice something new. The note smells faintly like beans. You don't sleep after that. Not just for the night. Something deeper breaks. The ability to surrender. To close your eyes and trust the world to be the same when they reopen. So you drive. Again. Miles blur. Days stop having names. You skip meals. You narrate your thoughts just to feel less alone. You stop checking the time because time has started to float. Like there's a clock ticking in some other version of your life, but you lost the signal. And at the edge of this unraveling, you land in the woods. Lake Anjikuni, northern Canada, sparse, cold, still. You didn't mean to find this one. But the story crawls into your brain like a splinter that won't come out. A trapper named Joe LaBelle arrives at a small Inuit village he visits every few months. Usually the people greet him, 20, maybe 30 of them. Warm fires, food, laughter, but this time, silence. The village is empty. No signs of struggle, no bodies. Just abandoned huts, half-cooked meals still hanging over dead fires, rifles propped neatly by doorways. Everything in order except the people are gone. Joe panics. He runs to the next telegraph station, reports what he saw. Mounties arrive, investigate. The area's scoured. And what they find makes it worse. One dog dead, frozen, starved, the rest gone. Graves in the village cemetery have been dug up, not by animals. Clean, intentional, opened. And then the sky gets weird. Witnesses in nearby areas, miles apart, report strange lights over the lake. Blue, flickering, floating low. No sound, just hovering, watching, and leaving. Historians still argue whether the story's true. Official records from the RCMP say the incident is exaggerated, if not fictional. But inconsistencies pile up. Discrepancies in timelines, Missing reports, altered names. The story refuses to die. A man in the 1970s claims to have found artifacts near the site. Handmade tools wrapped in thick hides. He took them home. Within weeks, he claimed to hear whispers in a language he didn't speak. He gave the tools to a museum, but they were never logged, never displayed, never seen again. You wonder if there's something about emptiness that draws the others, about places abandoned too quickly, meals left mid-bite, stories paused mid-sentence, like someone hit pause and then forgot to press play, or worse, chose not to. You sit by the lake for a while. It's quiet, too quiet, not peaceful, expectant, like the world is holding its breath. You think about the rhythm of all these vanishings, about how none of them feel random. What if every few decades the world thins in certain places, just a little, just enough, like the tide? What if every place has its moment of weakness? What if the closet knocks, the green children, the road blinks, the booth burns? What if none of these are accidents? What if something checks in on us from time to time? And when it does, it doesn't knock for permission. It knocks to see who's listening. You toss a stone into the lake. It skips once, then vanishes. Not beneath the surface. Gone. No splash. No ripple. Just not there. You don't try another. You head back to your car. But before you leave, you write something in the fog of your windshield, like a message to whoever's watching. I know. You turn the key, drive away, don't look back. Not because you're brave, because you can't. You know what happens to people who look? You pass a sign on the highway. Next service is 60 miles. There's a single person standing beside it. You slow instinctively. But they're not hitchhiking. They're just waiting. As you pass, they turn to look at you. Their face is yours. Not older, not younger. Just wrong. You keep driving. The gas gauge ticks lower. You whisper a single question into the dark. Am I still here? The radio turns on by itself. No music, just static. Then, under the hiss, a voice. Quiet, familiar. You are for now. The road stretches behind you now, quieter with each mile, like the world's pulling a blanket over its eyes. Outside, the stars have softened, blurred slightly at the edges like sleep trying to sneak in. You breathe deeper, slower. Each exhale carries the weight of everything you've heard, everything you've almost seen. The echoes of missing footsteps, the shimmer of a red coat slipping behind trees, a boy's voice from the hallway closet that knocked just 3 times. But right now it's just you, just the hush of late night air, the hum of your own breath, the reassuring tick of something familiar. Maybe the fan you turned on before bed. Maybe the distant sound of rain, even if it's not raining. And if something is listening, if some distant, unknowable watcher is still nearby, it isn't moving. It's letting you rest. You earned that. So lean back. Let your muscles settle. Let your heart beat slow like a metronome winding down. Whatever doors open tonight, they've closed again, for now. And whatever's still out there, it can wait. Because you're here, you're home, you're real. And that's more than most of them ever get. So sleep, dream gently. And if you wake up and the mirror looks strange, don't worry. Just blink slowly, smile, and know it's probably just your reflection catching up. Probably.